Art is an amazing way to express emotions, and of course, the main form of art is painting. And that's the subject of today's new iceberg, the painting's iceberg. This iceberg was created by the umbilical cord guy. Thank you for this legendary iceberg. But enough chit chat, let's get into some beautiful artwork. This painting needs no introduction. The Mona Lisa is a half-length portrait painting by Leonardo da Vinci, considered as an archetypal masterpiece of the Italian Renaissance. It has been described as the best known, the most visited, the most written about, the most sung about, the most parodied work of art in the world. The painting is probably of the Italian noblewoman Lisa Gherardini. It is in oil on a white Lombardy poplar panel. The Last Supper is a late 15th century mural painting by Leonardo da Vinci, housed by the refectory of Convent Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan, Italy. It is one of the Western world's most recognizable paintings. The work is assumed to have been started around 1495 and 96, and was commissioned as part of a plan of renovations to the church and its convent buildings by Leonardo's patron Ludovico Zorfa, Duke of Milan. The painting represents the scene of the Last Supper of Jesus with his apostles, as it told in Gospel of John 13:21. Leonardo had depicted the consternation that occurred among the 12 apostles when Jesus announced that one of them would betray him. The Creation of Adam is a fresco painting by Italian artist Michelangelo, which forms part of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Painted circa 1508 through 1512. It illustrates the biblical creation narrative from the book of Genesis, in which God gives life to Adam, the first man. The fresco is part of the complex iconographic scheme and is chronologically the fourth in the series of panels depicting episodes from Genesis. The painting has been reproduced in countless imitations and parodies. Michelangelo's Creation of Adam is one of the most replicated religious paintings of all time. The Last Judgment is another fresco by Michelangelo covering the whole altar wall of the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City. It is a depiction of the second coming of Christ and the final and eternal judgment by God of all humanity. The dead rise and descend to their fates as judged by Christ, who is surrounded by prominent saints. Altogether, there are over 300 figures, with nearly all the males and angels originally shown as nude. Many were later partially covered up by painted draperies, of which some remain after recent cleaning and restoration. The Last Judgment painting is worth $540 million. The Scream is the popular name given to the composition created by Norwegian Expressionist artist Edvard Munch in 1893. The agonized face in the painting has become one of the most iconic images of art, seen as symboling the anxiety of human condition. Munch recalled that he had been out for a walk at sunset when suddenly the setting sun light turned the clouds blood red. He sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. Scholars have located the spot to a fjord overlooking Oslo and have suggested other explanations for unnaturally orange sky, ranging from the effects of volcanic eruption to a physiological reaction by Mugg to his sister's commitment at a nearby lunatic asylum. The Starry Night is an oil on canvas painted by the Dutch post-impressionist painter Vincent van Gogh. Painted in June 1889, it depicts the view of an east-facing window of his asylum room at Saint-Remy-de-Provence, just before sunrise, with the addition of an imaginary village. It has been in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City since 1941, acquired through the Leo P. Bliss Besket. Widely regarded as Van Gogh's magnum opus, The Starry Night is one of the most recognized paintings in the Western art. The Birth of Venus is a painting by Italian artist Sandro Botticelli, probably made in the mid-1480s. It depicts the goddess Venus arriving at the shore after her birth, when she had emerged from the sea fully grown. The painting is in Usevi Gallery in Florence, Italy. The Persistence of Memory is a 1931 painting by artist Salvador Dali and one of the most recognizable works of Surrealism. First shown at the Julian Levy Gallery in 1932, since 1934, the painting has been in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, which received it from an anonymous donor. It is widely recognized and frequently referred in pop culture, and sometimes referred to by more descriptive titles such as Melting Clocks, The Soft Watches, or Melting Watches. American Gothic is a 1930 painting by Grant Wood in the collection of the Art Institute of Chicago. Wood was inspired to paint what is now known as the American Gothic House in Eldon, Iowa, along with the kind of people he fancied should live in that house. It depicts a father standing beside his daughter, often mistakenly assumed to be his wife. The painting is named for the house's architectural style. The figures were modeled by Wood's sister, Nan Wood Graham, and their dentist, Dr. Brian McKeeby. The Son of Man is a 1964 painting by Belgian surrealist René Magritte. It is perhaps his best-known artwork. Magritte painted it as a self-portrait. The painting consists of a man in an overcoat and a bowler hat standing in front of a low wall, beyond which are the sea and a cloudy sky. The man's face is largely obscured by a hovering green apple. However, the man's eyes can be seen peeking over the edge of the apple. Another subtle feature is that the man's left arm appears to bend backwards at the elbow. Washington Crossing the Delaware are three 1851 oil on canvas paintings by the German-American artist Emanuel Lutzi. The paintings commemorate General George Washington's crossing the Delaware River with the Continental Army on the night of December 25-26, 1776, during the American Revolutionary War. That action was the first move in the surprise attack and victory against the Hessian forces at the Battle of Trenton in New Jersey on the morning of December 26th. The original was part of the collection at Kunsthaus in Bremen, Germany, and was destroyed in a bombing raid in 1942 during World War II. Lutzi painted two more versions, one of which is now in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New Jersey. The other was in the West Wing reception area of the White House in Washington, D.C. But in March 2015, it was purchased and put on display at the Minnesota Marine Art Museum in Winona, Minnesota. Napoleon Crossing the Alps is a series of 5 oil-on-canvas esqueterian portraits of Napoleon Bonaparte painted by the French artist Jacques-Louis David between 1801 and 1805. Initially commissioned by King of Spain, The composition shows a strongly idealized view of the rail crossing that Napoleon and his army made across the Alps through the Great St. Bernard Pass in May 1800. Guernica is a large 1937 oil painting on canvas by Spanish artist Pablo Picasso. It's one of his best-known works, regarded by many art critics as the most moving and powerful anti-war painting in history. It is exhibited in the Museo Reina Sofia in Madrid. The gray, black, and white painting, which is 3.4 meters tall and 7.76 meters across, portrays the suffering wrought by violence and chaos. Prominent in the composition are a gored horse, a bull, a screaming woman, a dead baby, a dismembered soldier, and flames. Picasso painted Guernica at his home in Paris in response to the 26th of April 1937 bombing of Guernica, a Basque country town in northern Spain, which was bombed by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy at the request of the Spanish nationalists. Upon completion, Guernica was exhibited at the Spanish display at the 1937 Paris International Exposition, and then at other venues across the world. The touring exposition was used to raise funds for Spanish war relief. The painting soon became famous and widely acclaimed, and it helped bring worldwide attention to the Spanish Civil War. Impression Sunrise is a painting by Claude Monet, first shown at what would become known as Exhibition of Impressionists in Paris, April 1874. The painting is credited with inspiring the name of the Impressionist movement. Impression Sunrise depicts the port of Le Havre, Monet's hometown. It is now displayed at the Musée Marmottan Monet in Paris. Campbell's Soup Cans is a work of art produced between November 1961 and March or April 1962 by American artist Andy Warhol. It consists of 32 canvases, each measuring 51 centimeters in height and 41 centimeters in width, and each consisting of a painting of Campbell's soup can, one of each of the canned soup varieties that the company offered at the time. The non-painterly works were produced by a screen printing process and depict imagery deriving from popular culture and belong to the pop art movement. The School of Athens is a fresco by Italian Renaissance artist Raphael. It was printed between 1509 and 1511 as part of Raphael's commission to decorate the rooms now known as the Stanza di Raffaello in the Apostolic Palace in Vatican. The painting is notable for its accurate perspective projection, which Raphael learned from Leonardo da Vinci, who is the central figure in the painting representing Plato. The rebirth of ancient Greece philosophy and culture in Europe were inspired by Leonardo's individual pursuits in theater, engineering, optics, geometry, physiology, anatomy, history, architecture, and art. This work has long been seen as Raphael's masterpiece and the perfect embodiment of classical spirit of the Renaissance. Don't move. Girl with a Pearl Earring is an oil painting by Dutch Golden Age painter Johannes Vermeer, dated circa 1665, going by various names over the centuries. It became known by its present title towards the end of the 20th century, after the earring woman by the girl portrayed there. The work has been in the collection of the Maréchaussées in the Hague since 1902 and has been subject of various literacy and cinematic treatments. Number 5, 1948, is a painting by Jackson Pollock, an American painter known for his contributions to the abstract expressionist movement. It was sold in the 22nd of May 2006 for $140 million. A Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grande, painted it from 1884 to 1886, and in the collection of the Art Institute of Chicago, is George Seurat's most famous work. A leading example of the pointillist technique executed on a large canvas is a founding work of the Neo-Impressionist movement. Seurat's composition includes a number of Parisians at a park on the banks of the River Seine. Dogs Playing Poker by Cassius Marcellus Coleridge refers collectively to an 1894 painting, a 1903 series of 16 oil paintings commissioned by Brown and Bridgelow to advertise cigars, and a 1910 painting. All 18 paintings in the overall series features dogs, but the 11 in which dogs are seen around the card table have been well known in the US as examples of kitsch art and home decoration. Depictions and reenactments of the series have appeared in many films, television shows, theater productions, and other popular culture art forms. Critic Annette Ferrara has described Dogs Playing Poker as indelibly burned into the American collective of schlock subconscious through incessant reproduction on all matters of pop ephemeria. The Weeping Woman is an oil-on-canvas painting by Pablo Picasso, which he created in France in 1937. The painting depicts Dora Maar, Picasso's mistress and muse. The Weeping Woman was created at the end of the series of paintings that Picasso produced in response of the bombing of Guernica in the Spanish Civil War, and is closely associated with the iconography in his painting Guernica. Picasso was intrigued with the subject of the Weeping Woman and revisited the theme numerous times that year. This painting, created on the 26th of October 1937, is the most elaborate of the series. And with that out of the way, let's get into Tier 2. Number 17A is an abstract expressionist painting by Jackson Pollock. The painting is an oil paint on fiberboard and is a drip painting created by splashing paint onto a horizontal surface. It was painted the year after Jackson Pollock introduced his drip technique. The painting was featured in the August 1949 edition of Life that made Jackson Pollock a celebrity. Nighthawks is a 1942 oil-on-canvas painting by Edward Hopper that portrays 4 people in a downtown diner late at night as viewed through the diner's large glass window. The light coming from the diner illuminates a darkened and deserted urban streetscape. It has been described as Hopper's best-known work, and is one of the most recognizable paintings in American art. It's an oil painting of 1818 through 19 by the French Romantic painter Theodore Géricault, completed when the artist was 27. The work has become an icon of French Romanticism at 491 by 716 centimeters. Is an over life-size painting that depicts a moment from the aftermath of the wreck of the French naval frigate Medusa, which ran aground off the coast of today's Mauritania of the July 2nd, 1816. On the 5th of July, 1816, at least 147 people were set adrift on a hurriedly constructed raft. All but 15 died in the span of 13 days before their rescue, and those who survived endured starvation and dehydration and practiced cannibalism. The event became an international scandal in part because its cause was widely attributed to the incompetence of the French. The Garden of Earthly Devices is the modern title given to a triptych oil painting on oak panel painted by early Netherlandish master Romanticism Bosch between 1490 and 1510, when Bosch was between 40 and 60 years old. It has been housed in the Museo del Prado in Madrid since 1939. As little is known of Bosch's life or intentions. Interpretations of his intent range from an admonition of worldly fleshy indulgence to dire warning of the perils of life, temptations to an evocation of the ultimate sexual joy. The intricacy of its symbolism, particularly that of the central panel, has led to a wide range of scholarly interpretations over the centuries. 20th century art historians are divided as to whether that the triptych's central panel is a moral warning or paranorma of Paradise Lost. Bosch painted 3 large triptychs that can be read from left to right, and in which each panel was essential to the meaning of the whole. Each of these 3 works presents distinct yet linked themes addressing history and thing. The left and right panels often portraying Eden and the Last Judgment respectively, while the main subject was contained in the centerpiece. It is not known whether the garden was intended as an altarpiece, but the general view is that the extreme subject matter of the inner center and right panels make it unlikely that it was intended to function in a church or monastery, but was instead commissioned by a lay patron. The Maryland Diptych is a silk-screen painting by American pop artist Andy Warhol depicting Marilyn Monroe. The painting consists of 50 images. Each image of the actress is taken from single publicity photograph from the film Niagara. The underlying publicity photograph that Warhol used as a basis for his many paintings and prints of Marilyn. And the Maryland Diptych was owned and distributed by her movie studio. Maryland Diptych was completed just weeks after Marilyn Monroe's death in August 1962. Militia Company of District 2, under the command of Captain Franz Cook, commonly referred to as the Night Watch, is a 1642 painting by Rembrandt van Rijn. It is in this collection of the Amsterdam Museum, but is prominently displayed at the Museum as the best-known painting in its collection. The Night Watch is one of the most famous Dutch Golden Age paintings. The painting is famous for 3 things: its colossal size, the dramatic use of light and shadow, and the perception of motion in which would have traditionally been static military group portrait. Painting was completed in 1642 at the peak of the Dutch Golden Age. It depicts an eponymous company moving out led by Captain Franz Benedict Cook and his lieutenant William van Rietschebert, with effective use of sunlight and shade. Rembrandt leads the eye to the three most important characters among the crowd: the two men in the center and the woman in the center left background carrying a chicken. Behind them, the company's colors are carried by the ensign John Bashir Cornelissen. The figures are almost life-size. Death of Marat is a 1793 painting by Jacques-Louis David of the murdered French revolutionary leader Jean-Paul Marat. It is one of the most famous images of the French Revolution. David was the leading French painter as well as the Montagnard and a member of the Revolutionary Committee of General Security. The painting shows the radical journalist lying dead in his bath on the 13th of July, 1793. After his murder by Charlotte Corday, painted in the months after Marat's murder, has been described by T.J. Clark as the first modernist painting for the way it took the stuff of politics as its material and did not transmute it. The Ishi Homo, Behold the Man, in the Sanctuary of Mercy Church in Borja, Spain, is a fresco painted circa 1930 by Spanish painter Elias Garcia Martinez, depicting Jesus crowned with thorns. Both the subject and style are typical of traditional classic art. When pressed crowds agree that the original painting was artistically unremarkable, its fame derives from a good faith attempt to restore the fresco by Cecilia Gimenez, an untrained amateur, in 2012. The intervention transformed the painting and made it look similar to a monkey, and for this reason it is sometimes known as Ishimono, Behold the Monkey. Vincent van Gogh painted a self-portrait in oil on canvas in September 1889. The work, which may have been Van Gogh's last self-portrait, was painted shortly before he left Saint-Rémy-de-Provence in southern France. The painting is now at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. The Old Guitarist is an oil painting by Pablo Picasso, which he created in late 1903 and early 1904. It depicts an elderly musician, a haggard man with a threadbare clothing, who is hunched over his guitar while playing in the streets of Barcelona, Spain. It is on display at the Art Institute of Chicago as part of the Helen Birch Bartlett Memorial Collection. At the time of the Old Guitarist's creation, Modernism, Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and Symbolism have greatly influenced Picasso's style. Furthermore, El Grisho, Picasso's poor state of living and a suicide of a dear friend, influenced Picasso's style at the time, to which came to be known as his Blue Period. Several X-rays, infrared images, and examinations by curators revealed three different figures hiding behind the Old Guitarist. Here above the Sea of Fog is an oil painting circa 1818 by German Romantic artist Caspar David Friedrich. It depicts a man standing upon a rocky precipice with his back to the viewer. He is wrapped in a dark green overcoat and grips a walking stick in his right hand. His hair caught in the wind, the wanderer gazes out on a landscape covered in a thick sea of fog. In the middle ground, several other ridges, perhaps not unlike the wanderer himself stands on, jut out from the mass. It has been considered one of the masterpieces of Romanticism and one of the most representative works. It resides in Kunsthalle, Hamburg, Germany. The Night Cafe is an oil painting created by Vincent van Gogh in September 1888 in Arles. Its title is inscribed lower right beneath the signature. The painting is owned by Yale University and is currently held at the Yale University Art Gallery in New Haven, Connecticut. The interior depicted is the Café de la Gare, 30 Place Lamartine, run by Joseph Michelangelo and his wife, Mary, who in November 1888 posed for Van Gogh and Gauguin's Arles scene. A bit later, Joseph Guinot eventually posed for both artists too. The Death of Socrates is an oil on canvas painted by French painter Jacques-Louis David in 1787. The painting focuses on a classical subject like many of his works from that decade. In this case, the story of the execution of Socrates, as told by Plato in his Phaedo. In this story, Socrates had been convicted of corrupting the youth of Athens and introducing strange gods, and has been sentenced to die by drinking poison hemlock. Socrates uses his death as a final lesson for his pupils rather than fleeing when the opportunity arises, and faces it calmly. The Phaedo depicts the death of Socrates and is also Plato's fourth and last dialogue to detail the philosopher's final days, which was also detailed in Euphyro, Apology, and Crito. The Great Wave of Canagua, also known as the Great Wave or simply the Wave, is a wood block painting by Japanese ukiyo-e artist Hokusai. It was published sometime between 1827 and 1833 in the late Edo period, as the first print of Hokusai's series, 36 Views of Mount Fuji. The image depicts an enormous wave threatening 3 boats off the coast of Sagami Bay while Mount Fuji rises in the background. Sometimes assumed to be a tsunami, the wave is more likely to be a large rogue wave. Liberty Leading the People is a painting by Eugene Delacroix commemorating the July Revolution of 1830, which toppled King Charles X of France. A woman of the people with a Phrygian cap personifying the concept of liberty leads a varied group of people forward over a barricade and bodies of the fallen, holding the flag of the French Revolution. The tricolor, which again has become France's national flag after these events, is one in one hand and brandishing a bayoneted musket with the other. The figure of liberty is also viewed as a symbol of France and the French Republic, known as Marigny. The painting is often confused for depicting the French Revolution. The Declaration of Independence is an oil on canvas painting by the American artist John Trumbull, depicting the presentation of the draft of Declaration of Independence to Congress. It was based on a much smaller version of the same scene presently held by Yale University Art Gallery. Trumbull painted many of the figures in the picture from life and visited Independence Hall to depict the chamber where the Second Continental Congress met. The oil on canvas work was commissioned in 1817, purchased in 1819, and placed in the United States Capitol Rotunda in 1826. The painting is sometimes incorrectly described as depicting the sighting of the Declaration of Independence, The painting shows the 5-man drafting committees presenting their draft of the Declaration to the Congress, an event that took place on June 22nd, 1776, and not its signing, which took place mainly on July 2nd. Wheat Field with Crows is a July 1890 painting by Vincent van Gogh. It has been cited by several critics as one of his greatest works. It is commonly stated this was Van Gogh's final painting. However, art historians are uncertain as which painting was Van Gogh's last, as no clear historical records exist. The evidence of his letter suggests that Wheatfield with Crows was completed around 10th of July that predates such paintings as Avers Town Hall on 14th July 1890 and Delbingy's Garden. The Wounded Deer is an oil painting by Mexican artist Frida Kahlo, created in 1946. It is also known as the Little Deer. Through the Wounded Deer, Kahlo shares her enduring physical and emotional suffering with her audience, as she did throughout her creative oeuvre. This painting in particular was created towards the end of Kahlo's life, when her health was in decline. Kahlo combines pre-Columbian Buddhist and Christian symbols to express her wide spectrum of influences and beliefs. Portrait of a Young Woman is a painting which is commonly believed to be by the Italian Renaissance painter Sandro Botticelli, executed between 1480 and 1485. Others attribute authorship to Jacopo da Salio. The woman is shown in profile but with her bust turned 3/4 view to reveal a cameo medallion she is wearing around her neck. The medallion is a copy in reverse of Nero's seal, a famous antique carnelian representing Apollo and Marsyas, which belonged to Lorenzo de Medici. Sunflowers is the title of 2 series of still life paintings by Vincent van Gogh. The first series, executed in Paris in 1887, depicts the flowers laying on the ground, while the second set, made a year later in Arles, shows a bouquet of sunflowers in a vase. In the artist's mind, both sets were linked by the name of his friend Paul Gauguin, who acquired 2 of Paris' versions. About 8 months later, Van Gogh hoped to welcome and impress Gauguin again with sunflowers, now part of the painted decoration for a yellow house that he prepared for the guest room of his home in Arles, where Gauguin was supposed to stay. After Gauguin's departure, Van Gogh imagined the 2 major versions as wings of the barbecue triptych and he finally included them in his Les 20 in Bruxelles exhibit. La Déjeuner sur le Hub, version titled Le Bon, is a large oil-on-canvas painting by Edouard Manet, created in 1862 and 1863. It depicts a female nude and a scantily dressed female bather on a picnic with 2 fully dressed men in a rural setting. Rejected by the salon jury of 1863, Manet seized the opportunity to exhibit this and 2 other paintings in the 1863 Salon des Refus, where the painting sparked public notoriety and controversy. The work is now in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. A smaller, earlier version can be seen at the Courtauld Gallery, London. The Athenaeum portrait, also known as the Athenaeum, is an unfinished painting by Gilbert Stuart of former U.S. President George Washington. It was created in 1796 and is considered to be Stewart's most notable work. The painting depicts Washington at age 65 on a brown background. It served as a model for engraving that would be used for the United States $1 bill. Stanza is a painting by John Michelangelo, finished in 1862. This painting was acquired by the Warsaw National Museum in 1924 during World War II. It was looted by the Nazis and subsequently by the Soviet Union, but was returned to Poland around 1956. It is one of Michelangelo's most famous works and the one that launched him into fame. It has been described as one of the most recognizable paintings in the Warsaw National Museum and is a flagship painting for the collection of Polish paintings prior to 1914. Its primary component is the contrast between the solemn jester and the lively ball going in the background. The painting has created an image of Stanzik and has been iconic and widely recognized in Poland. The cast is an oil-on canvas painting with added gold leaf and silver and platinum by the Austrian symbolist painter Gustav Klimt. It was painted at some point in 1907 and 1908 during the height of what scholars call his golden period. It was exhibited in 1908 under the title Liebespaar, as stated in the catalog of the expedition. The painting depicts a couple embracing each other, their bodies entwined with an elaborate, beautiful robe decorated in a style influenced by the contemporary Art Nouveau style and the organic forms of the earlier arts and crafts movement. The painting now hangs in the Österreich Galerie Belvedere Museum in Belvedere, Vienna, and is considered a masterpiece in Vienna succession and Klimt's most famous work. Cafeteris at Night is an 1888 oil painting by, once again, Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh painted Café Terrace at Night in Arles, France in mid-September 1888. The painting is not signed but described and mentioned by the artist in 3 letters. Visitors to the site can stand at northeastern corner of the Place du Forum, where the artist set up his easel. The site was refurbished in 1990 and 1991 to replicate Van Gogh's painting. He looked south towards the artificial lit terrace of popular coffee house, as well as into the enforced darkness of Rue de Palais, which led up to a building structure. And beyond the sculpture, the tower of a former church, which is now Musée Lapidaire. Les Demoiselles de Avignon is a large oil painting created by Pablo Picasso. The work was part of the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art. Portrays 5 nude female prostitutes in a brothel on Carrer de Avignon, a street in Barcelona. Each figure is depicted in a disconcerting conformational manner, and none is conventionally feminine. The women appear slightly menacing and rendered with angular and disjointed body shapes. The figure on the left exhibits facial features and a dress of Egyptian or Southern Asian style. The 2 adjacent figures are shown in the Iberian style of Picasso's native Spain, while the 2 on the right are shown in African mask-like features. The ethnic primitivism evoked in these masks, according to Picasso, moved him to liberate and utterly original artistic style of compelling, even savage force. Blue Poles, also known as Number 11, 1952, is an abstract expressionist painting by Jackson Pollock. It was purchased by amid controversy by National Gallery of Australia in 1973, and today remains one of the gallery's most major paintings. To finish this video off is 8 Elvises. It is a 1963 silkscreen painting by Andy Warhol of Elvis Presley. In 2008, it was sold by Annabelle Burglary for $100 million to a private buyer, which at the time was the most valuable work by Andy Warhol. The current owner and location of the painting, which has not been seen publicly since the 1960s, are unknown. It's believed the buyer was the royal Qatari family of Eric Smith, CEO of Harbor Freight Tools. And that finishes off the first part of this 3-video series. I hope you enjoyed and have a nice day.